Hello and welcome to another edition of Property Done Property, Century 21's podcast. I have another guest with me today of significant importance. It's Simon Jones from Zoopla, who I've had the pleasure of spending some time in his company at our recent conference. Good afternoon, Simon. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you, Andrew. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well indeed. So, for those people who probably don't know you, do you just want to give a brief introduction about what you do and how you come about to be working at Zoopla?
Yeah, so my name's Simon Jones, as you said. I'm account manager at Zoopla. I've been at Zoopla now for 3 years, and I deal with all of the franchise estate agents, or majority of the franchise estate agents within Zoopla. So I help estate agents set up their membership, run their membership on a day-to-day basis, and help the agents and the franchisees get the most out of their membership to increase their return on investment, really. So I'm pretty much the direct contact for franchise estate agents within Zoopla.
Excellent. What were you doing before?
So previously, I've been in and out of the property industry now since 2006, where I first got into corporate estate agency, it's a high street corporate estate agency, where I did a stint as a negotiator before becoming a fully qualified mortgage advisor.
Okay.
And then I've worked in commercial finance for property investment and property developments, to then do a full 360 back to the estate agency world within Zoopla 3 years ago.
Excellent. I think it always helps for people who are account managers that we work with who've got industry experience because they understand how estate agents think and how we work, and it's really quite good. We've certainly enjoyed. We've had some really good customer managers over the past few years, and it's been great to have you to be working with you. I know we've had some excellent feedback from the franchisees, so that's really good.
Thank you.
So let's get straight into it and talk. Just want to talk about property. I think agents use the portals. Those who don't use the portals are probably going to struggle for to make a living. Um, let's talk about property presentation. What would you say, from your experience, are the top 5 tips for your property presentation?
So when when you sent me this question, I was umming and ahhing about what to say on this, but I think that ultimately, when obviously for presentation for property listings, one of the key things on the portals is to make sure that you've got. So the first thing is make sure your property type, the tenure is correct, and the number of rooms and short descriptions are key and to the point. So the amount of people that look for a 2-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house and there's flats in there, I see it on a day-to-day basis that people have put the wrong property type in there, the wrong tenure, and the wrong amount of bedrooms. Because some people who want to look for a 2-bedroom house and they see flats in there, they're not necessarily going to be seeing that. And anyone that's looking for a 2-bedroom flat ultimately might not then see that 2-bedroom flat that's been put down as a house. So I
Yeah.
think one of the key things with regards to listings is to make sure you've got those key things correct. And 99.9% of the time they are correct, but it's just making sure that before it goes live on the portal, that's a really key thing on there.
Yeah.
The second thing I would probably say is making sure that the key features about that property are there as well. So, on Zoopla, you can use the ability to add up to 9 additional features to highlight the most important information at the top of the listing as well.
Yeah.
And this is really key if you've got someone that's looking for a, off-road parking, south-facing garden, something along those lines, that they can see in a snapshot that key information that they're looking for. So it's making sure that that information is there for the prospective tenant or purchaser to see. So I think that's probably my point number 2. Point number 3 is ultimately looking at quality photos. Would probably be a key thing on there. So with the photos, not everyone has access to professional photography, but it's making sure that if you've got the ability to take high quality photos and accurate photos, make sure they're all in the same orientation, showing a variety of rooms, perhaps different angles, so you can see the rooms in different angles. But make sure that the property is clear, clutter-free, but that ultimately that those photos do show a good representation of that property.
Yeah.
So it's, in terms of quantity as well, we've identified that the more photo from a sales property, the more photos, the better. So listings that have a 15 plus photos on there have a 38% higher search click rate than those with just 5 photos or less. So it's
Okay.
really, really key that if you've got, you've got a 2-3 bedroom property that you're looking to sell, that you have lots of photos from lots of different angles, all clear, good light, make sure that they're all quite clear for the consumer to see. So I think that's pretty good to have as well. So I'd probably say the next one, so point number 4 is floor plans.
Yeah.
So floor plans are used to boost, what we found is that floor plans boost the search clicks through as well. Our user research has shown that homeowners prefer to look at a floor plan rather than read a property's full description to understand the layout of a property. That doesn't mean you need to negate the full description, because sometimes, words can obviously put pictures, but if you can read something and see the picture of it at the same time, or see the layout, you can see how it, you could potentially flow through that property, or a consumer, a tenant, or a purchaser could actually see themselves living in that property.
Yeah.
What we've also seen is that sales listings with a floor plan do receive nearly a 10% higher search click rate than those without. So you're generating more interest on that property, and you would be generating more potential leads for your vendors and landlords.
Yeah.
Lettings listings do receive just under 5%, so about 4% higher search click rate than those without as well. So definitely for your sales, whilst the market is as it is, and the lettings market, as we know, nationwide is still really, really strong. Obviously, floor plans for sales properties are quite important. Alongside with that is obviously virtual tours as well. So I think having virtual tours can obviously enhance the click-through rates that you would find for your potential purchasers or tenants as well. Then the 5th thing, and this is obviously a legal requirement now, is making sure that you add an EPC, and make sure it's an up-to-date EPC as well. Because obviously, as we're aware in the industry, it's a legal requirement, but having that data readily available for property seekers can obviously save them time, as a low or high EPC rating can be a deciding factor on what they do with that, whether they go further with it or not. So I think if I was going to list those 5, that would be the 5 things that we would probably highlight.
I think you make some really interesting points there, and it's certainly things that I've spoken to our offices about and other agents in previous jobs, and that is the bullet points tell us something we can't see from looking at the pictures, rather than, you've got a picture of a detached house and someone puts detached house. You think, oh, well, I'm looking at the pictures. A bit patronising, but also the pictures as well. People are quite, our mobile phones now take amazing quality pictures, but you get the orientation wrong and you get a border around it. I think you're absolutely spot on. And when you hit the nail on the head with floor plans and virtual tours, when we were in lockdown, it seems like a long time ago now, but people were doing virtual tours and sending them out to applicants before they could go and view. That was, a requirement to be done when we wanted to go. You had to look at that first and say, yeah, I want to go and have a look at it, so that then the agents could prepare themselves. But it's quite clear to see when you look at listings that still a lot of agents are missing those off. I think I would rather look at a virtual tour myself and then make a decision about whether or not I'm going to go and have a look at the property, check out the area, because if it doesn't fit, and then look at the floor plan, check the layout. So I think there's some really interesting points there. Really, really interesting points. This can obviously all lead to deciding factors when agents are talking to their respective vendors, sellers, etc., and landlords, just about click-through rate. And I think it's very easy. I remember when I was in agency and people used to come to me and say, well, I get this particular click-through rate report from my current agent, but I don't understand what it means. And I always think it's quite important that, agents understand it so they can then feed back. So what is a click-through rate? What does it mean for a property, and how can we use that to demonstrate to our vendors that we're doing the best job we can, or that potentially we may need to look at some form of price reduction?
So a click-through rate is when someone's on a portal. So as a consumer, Andrew, so if you and I are looking for property, so a click-through rate is when a prospective buyer or tenant clicks on an advertised property on the portal, or through whether the app or through desktop, to find out more information about that property. So they're clicking on that particular listing to then gain more information to see whether or not it meets their requirements further. So we can, as a property stays on the market longer, generally the click-through rate reduces, and things, as you said, like price reductions can then increase that further, because a price reduction could bring it into the pricing of someone that they weren't looking at that let's say it was going at 275 and it comes down to 250 the price. Then someone who was looking only up to 250 won't necessarily see something at 275, but actually now it's at 250, it will be more within their criteria and search criteria, so it might flick into them, or they'll be more inclined to look at that going forward. So I know through Zoopla we can produce a performance listings report, or listings performance report, so you can see over time how many times that property has been clicked on, so that you can have those conversations with your vendors and landlords. They're not necessarily the easiest conversation, but it's getting that pricing point correct to get the right people to go and view that property.
Yeah, I think it's something that I think a lot of agents have probably stopped using, and perhaps at the moment, my opinion would be that we do need to probably reinstate those to our vendors, but with a decent explanation behind them, not just email them over or send them out on post.
Yeah, I know.
Which is-
I remember years ago when I first started in a estate agency, just every week that sending out, like, just perform. This is who we sent it out to. This is how many viewings we've had, and just having a report to fill out every time. So I remember those going out well, but it's all digitized now. So you can go onto the performance on Zoopla, on Zoopla, and see how that's performed for your vendors and landlords.
Yeah, excellent. Certainly moving forward, all that kind of stuff. So on a final point here, we always like asking people who are at the sort of cutting edge of what's going on in the marketplace at the moment. What is Zoopla's thoughts for the market heading into 2024?
Prices are likely to fall by another 2% in 2024 as well. So which is nothing really, as income keeps rising to slowly reset the housing affordability. So in places like the South London and the south of England, where affordability is, to afford a property is quite high, we find that that's where property prices over the last 6 months, 12 months have been more substantial. However, now we're probably finding now that across 4 in 5 housing markets are now registering annual price falls, up from about 1 in 20 just 6 months ago. So we can see that affordability is starting to level the playing field across the playing field, shall we say?
Yeah.
We did say that in 2023 house prices would reduce by up to 5%, and we've been pretty much bang on with that. So we kind of feel that over 2024 they're likely to reduce by around 2% across the board. So there will be regional fluctuations within that, but we reckon around 2% reduction on there. Couple of other points as well. So we've also identified that this year, and we're again on track to see that there's going to be around 1 million sales are going to go through this year. And if things stay as they are, then there's likely to be another million sales next year as well. So there's still a vast amount of sales that are likely to happen next year. But the outlook really does hinge on mortgage rates. So if they fall back towards 4% sooner rather than later, more people will come back into the market. So I think looking across the board, I think if interest rates drop further, or continue to drop, and the Bank of England start reducing as inflation's now reducing. I think was it 4.6%? I think something off the top of my head. So it's dropped to its lowest for quite a while. Then mortgage rates may tend to drop off the back of that as well. So there's some key points to watch out for. But again, other things, there's a general election next year. There's an election in America next year as well, and all of these could potentially have effects on the market next year as well. So we wait and see what happens with that.
Yeah, you tend to get people in when we're leading up to a potential general election who'll sit on the fence and wait to see what happens, and then they will come flooding back into the market almost a day after. So
Yeah.
it's quite interesting to see what they can do to just help push the market. I think there's a lot of stuff being said in the papers that I've seen personally about stamp duty and so on and so forth. So yeah, it'd be quite interesting. Simon, it's a real pleasure to talk to you. You have a wealth of knowledge. It's always interesting, the stuff that we talk about on a monthly basis when we have our catch up with offices in terms of stats. One of those stats in particular I talk to you very regularly about is our conversion from the leads that we get from you.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I'd like to invite you back, and we'll have another one. We try and get some good points out to the agents about sorting out their conversion rate for their leads that they get, that they work hard and tirelessly to try and get through their system. So thank you for your time. I know you're really busy down there, so I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. It's been a pleasure being on, and look forward to doing the next one.
Thank you.